The waiter froze mid-step when my sister's voice cut through the laughter. "You don't belong at this table, Maya. Go sit somewhere else." The world went silent. Forks stopped. Glasses stilled. Even the piano in the corner seemed to hesitate. I stood there, my hands trembling around my clutch. The smell of wine and steak turned bitter in my throat. My sister, Claire, leaned back in her chair, that cruel smirk resting on her painted lips. "Since you're not family, you can cover your part," she said, sliding the check toward me. $2,880. "You can afford that, right?" Laughter, whispering. The sting of humiliation burned hotter than the candlelight. "My name is Emma Collins, 24. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, and work as a graphic designer for a small marketing studio near Quincy Market. Most days, I walk to work with a coffee in one hand and my sketchbook in the other, designing logos for people who can afford to dream bigger than I can. I'm not rich. I'm not the Collins daughter who gets invited to galas or wears designer heels. I'm the adopted one. The one they mention in past tense. Our parents took her in, years ago. I was adopted at 7 after my parents' car accident made headlines for a week and then disappeared from the news cycle. The Collins family seemed like angels back then. Claire, the perfect daughter with piano lessons and prep school uniforms. And me, the quiet girl who drew faces on napkins to avoid crying. Claire never let me forget I didn't belong. She called me Charity, the project, and once even told her friends I was a foster experiment gone right. It hurt. But I learned silence was stronger than arguing. So I built my own life, small, steady, simple. When she texted last week. "Family dinner at Bella Lucia. Formal. Don't be late." I told myself it was peace. Maybe she'd grown up. Maybe I'd misjudged her. I spent my week's savings on a navy dress from a clearance rack. I even curled my hair for the first time in months. Hope is such a fragile thing. The restaurant was glowing, white linen, crystal glasses, the kind of place you lower your voice to be taken seriously. Claire sat at the center, laughing with her friends, lawyers, executives, and one man who wore his wealth like cologne. When she saw me, her smile was painted on. "Emma, you made it." But her eyes said, "Why did you bother?" I sat. Tried to blend in. Ordered the cheapest meal. For a moment, I almost felt normal. Then dessert came, and the check arrived. Claire glanced at it, sighed dramatically, then turned to me. "Actually, Em, we split by family. Since you're not, well, you know, this one's yours." She slid the folder toward me. The number stared back, $2,880. I blinked. "Claire. I didn't even order half of this." She tilted her head. "But you sat with us. That counts." Her friends laughed. Someone muttered, "Guess adoption doesn't come with discounts." I wanted to disappear. My throat burned with humiliation, but I swallowed it. I didn't argue. Didn't shout. I took out my card and paid. Every cent. Because dignity, I've learned, sometimes costs more than pride. When I stood to leave, Claire raised her glass. "Don't be dramatic, Emma. It's just money." I smiled, faint, steady. "You're right. It's just money." But as I walked out into the cold Boston night, my reflection flickered in the restaurant window, small, quiet, invisible, and I knew something had changed. Not in her. In me. That night, under the sharp winter air, I made myself a silent promise. You'll never let her make you small again. The city lights blurred behind my tears, but I kept walking. My hands still shook, but this time, not from shame. From resolve. Because I didn't know it yet, but that $2,880 dinner bill was the last time she'd ever laugh at my expense. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a bank notification. $2,880.00 withdrawn. The number pulsed on my phone like a bruise. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because of the money, though it hurt, but because it confirmed something I had refused to admit for years. Claire didn't just want to humiliate me. She wanted to erase me. Boston sunlight poured through my window, bright and indifferent. I dragged myself to the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and almost laughed. My makeup was still smudged, my hair tangled from the wind. I looked like someone who'd just been reminded of her place in the world. I made coffee, sat by my small kitchen window, and let memories I'd buried years ago crawl back out. When I was 7, the Collinses came to the orphanage. Claire had been 10. She wore a red ribbon in her hair and glared at me like I was a pet her parents were forcing her to take home. She never hit me, never screamed. Her cruelty was quieter, sharper. A missing invitation to her birthday party. A forgotten lunchbox. A laugh shared with her mother as I sat at the table, pretending not to notice. When I turned 18, our parents passed away suddenly, a car accident on their anniversary trip. The will divided the estate equally. But the next day, Claire showed up with a lawyer and a smile. "You were adopted, Emma. The blood clause means you get nothing." "Sorry, legal stuff." I didn't fight. I didn't even ask for proof. Because deep down, I'd already accepted what she wanted me to believe, that I was temporary. That dinner last night should have broken me again. It almost did. But somewhere between the sting of her laughter and the chill of that check folder, something inside me shifted. At work that morning, my boss found me staring blankly at my screen. "Rough night?" he asked. "Just family stuff," I muttered. He smiled sympathetically. "Family, the only place you can bleed quietly and still call it love." His words hit like a quiet thunder. After work, I stopped at the harbor, the one place in Boston that always made sense to me. The air smelled of salt and old wood, and the water shimmered like glass under the fading sun. I pulled out my sketchbook, but instead of drawing, I flipped to a blank page and wrote one sentence. Never let them tell you what you're worth. For years, I had played small. I'd apologized for existing, for being adopted, for taking up space in a story that was never written for me. But humiliation, when endured long enough, turns into clarity. Later that evening, I got a text from Claire. "Hey, no hard feelings about last night, right? Everyone thought it was funny. You can't take jokes so seriously, Emma. Lighten up. Also, send me that restaurant receipt. I need it for work." I stared at her messages. My stomach tightened. She wasn't even paying for it herself. Something in me went still. Not angry, still. That dangerous, razor-sharp calm that comes only when the pain stops stinging and starts shaping. I didn't reply. Not that night. Not for a week. Instead, I started collecting, quietly, patiently. Old messages. Screenshots. Receipts. The text where she mentioned her expense reports. She'd once bragged about charging her client dinners to her company's card. Last night's family dinner? Another one of those. The irony was poetic. She'd used me to fake her success. And she'd done it so carelessly she didn't even see it. On Sunday morning, I went back to the same cafe near the harbor. I ordered a black coffee, sat by the window, and opened my laptop. The screen glowed as I searched. How to report corporate expense fraud anonymously. The first link that appeared was her company's internal compliance form. I stared at it for a long minute, my cursor blinking over the empty text box. I thought about my parents, the ones who chose me. The ones who believed love was thicker than blood. Then I thought about Claire, the one who believed blood made her untouchable. Maybe it was time she learned that truth leaves a paper trail. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry either. I just sat at my small desk, surrounded by receipts, screenshots, and the faint hum of the city outside my window. Each click, each document I saved felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. By midnight, the file was ready. Titled neatly, Expense Verification, Claire Collins. And for the first time in my life, I felt something better than anger. Control. I sat on the edge of my apartment couch, legs tucked under me, staring at my laptop screen as the city lights of Boston flickered through the window. The folder labeled Expense Verification, Claire Collins, sat on my desktop like a loaded weapon. I didn't feel like a villain. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt awake. For years, Claire had believed she could humiliate me and I'd remain small, quiet, polite. That she could take everything, our parents' love, a seat at the table, my dignity, and I would simply accept it. Not this time. I opened the first email she'd ever sent about the client dinner she billed to her firm. The language was casual, almost smug. Family dinner at Bella Lucia. Expense approved. All good for reimbursement. I scrolled through her social media, tracing every post, every picture where she flaunted wealth, cleverness, and status. There it was, plain as daylight, signatures, receipts, and timestamps. Evidence she'd left lying around, thinking no one would ever care. A slow smile formed. I remembered last night at the restaurant, the glint of her bracelet, the tilt of her head, the way she slid that $2,880 folder across the table like a dagger. It wasn't just the money. It was the mockery, the deliberate humiliation in front of everyone. And for the first time I understood something very important: revenge didn't have to be dramatic to be devastating. It just had to be precise. I started making a plan. Quiet, careful, meticulous. Step 1, verify every expense. I called Bella Lucia, posing as a consultant helping Claire reconcile client billing. The manager, obliging and professional, emailed me the original invoice in under an hour. Step 2, cross-check the billing line with Claire's company's public compliance policy. Bingo. She had filed family dinner under client entertainment, something explicitly forbidden in their internal ethics guide. Step 3, gather every screenshot, every email, every careless comment Claire had ever made bragging about creative accounting. By the time I leaned back in my chair, the folder was massive. Screenshots of chat messages. Photos of invoices. The receipt she'd given me at Bella Lucia. A timeline I could trace from start to finish. And then, as I stared at the screen, a new thought surfaced: this wasn't just about her humiliation anymore. It was about truth. I remembered the Boston harbor. The cold wind biting at my cheeks. The way the sunlight had danced off the water, pure and honest. That clarity, the one that told me I was more than Claire's mockery, was still alive. This file, carefully compiled, was my harbor. My proof that I didn't need to shout, scream, or beg. That she could not touch the quiet dignity I had fought for my entire life. I saved the file in 3 formats: PDF, encrypted folder, and backup on a secure cloud account. Every detail double-checked. Every timestamp verified. I realized something: I could have gone public immediately, exposed her to social media. Humiliated her the way she had tried to humiliate me. But I didn't want that. That wasn't power. That was revenge for spectacle. True power, I decided, was inevitable consequences. I left my apartment, walked through Boston streets illuminated by neon signs and late-night diners. I carried the folder in my mind, rehearsing the calm voice I would use if confronted. I imagined Claire calling, panicked. I imagined HR digging through her client dinners. I imagined her perfect life cracking silently, paper trail by paper trail, without a single dramatic confrontation. The irony was sweet. The very bill she had shoved at me, the $2,880 dinner that was supposed to humiliate me, was now the thread that would unravel her. By midnight, I had drafted the anonymous submission to her company's compliance department. Every detail was there: invoice copies, screenshots of her claims, timestamps, and commentary citing internal policy violations. I didn't add commentary about her cruelty, her laughter, her mockery. I left only the facts. They were far more damning than any angry words could be. I leaned back in my chair, hands trembling slightly, not with fear, not with anger, but with the thrill of inevitability. For the first time in years, I felt untouchable. I had turned her weapon, her humiliation, her arrogance into a silent, precise storm. And she would never see it coming. I closed my laptop and poured myself a cup of tea, sipping slowly as the city hummed around me. The night was quiet, almost reverent. Somewhere between coffee sips and the glow of street lights, I realized I wasn't the adopted girl at the table anymore. The email was sent on a Wednesday at 9:17 a.m. Submission received, the automated reply read. And just like that, the file left my world and entered hers. I went to work like nothing had changed. Designed a logo. Drank bad coffee. Smiled when people passed my desk. But inside, a calm certainty pulsed through me. The storm was coming, and for once, it wasn't mine to weather. Over the next week, the collapse spread like ink in water. Her friends unfollowed her. Her firm scrubbed her name from their website. The luxury she'd flaunted, the car, the condo, the designer handbags, all became reminders of her downfall. Boston was small when you fell from grace. People whispered. They always did. I never told anyone. Never bragged. Never posted. I just lived. Quietly. Peacefully. I moved into a bigger apartment. Bought a proper desk for my sketches. Started freelancing, clients of my own, designs under my name, no one else's. Every night, I walked by the harbor, the same place where I'd written that single sentence weeks ago. Never let them tell you what you're worth. Now, I didn't need to remind myself. I knew. 2 months later, I saw her again, by accident. I was leaving a cafe when a familiar voice called my name. Emma. I turned. Claire stood there, thinner, pale, eyes ringed with exhaustion. Her expensive elegance was gone, she wore plain clothes, her hair tied back carelessly. For the first time in my life, she looked human. She stepped closer. You won. I tilted my head. It wasn't a game. Her lips parted, then closed again. For once, she had nothing cruel to say. You destroyed my career, she whispered. You could have just walked away. I did, I said quietly. You followed me to the edge. Her eyes glistened. Why? Just tell me why. I met her gaze, steady, unflinching. Because you shoved me once. I just learned to shove back. She blinked. And for a moment, I thought she might cry. But she didn't. She just nodded, like someone accepting gravity for the first time. Then she turned and walked away. The sound of her heels faded into the hum of the city. As I stood there, I felt something strange, not joy, not victory. Just stillness. That perfect kind of silence that feels like closure. Boston lights shimmered across the wet pavement. I lifted my chin, breathing in the cold air, the scent of rain and freedom. The city had never looked more alive. Because this time, I wasn't the girl standing outside the restaurant window, invisible and trembling. I was the woman who walked away, unbroken, unafraid, and unforgettable.